You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
All right, welcome back. It's another episode of 91 Reasons. I am Jeff Tucker. I am here once again to talk about all the crazy things that I like, appreciate, love, hate. You know it. That's why you're listening, right? So today we're going to talk about conventions because we're going to Comic-Con day after tomorrow. And Comic-Con is arguably the greatest convention of all time, right? Everybody agrees that. But there have been tons of other conventions. And for me, it's mostly been science fiction and horror entertainment conventions, that kind of stuff. Toy conventions, and I have been to a lot of conventions. It's just part of who I am, really, because conventions, as everyone will tell you, it's that one place where it's awesome because everybody there is into something either exactly that you're into or similar that you're into, and everybody right off the bat has a common ground. Of course, there's always, originally it was the Trekkies versus the Star Wars and blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, everybody's there to have a great time. And, gosh, I know I am because I've been going to conventions. The first convention I went to was, it all started, of course, as with everything in my generation. If you're into the stuff that I was into, Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and basically anything that Spielberg and Lucas put out, from 1975 Jaws on, you're part of the same generation. These guys basically created the modern fandom because the stuff that they put on the screen was so compelling and so enthralling that you wanted to live it. And the only way to live it was to go to a convention. And the only way to know about a convention back then was Starlog. And I mentioned Starlog a lot because Starlog was it, man. Starlog was the Bible for science fiction and genre film fans. Going to the supermarket and finding a new issue of Starlog was a treasure. Like, you just couldn't believe it. And you had to beg your mom because Starlog wasn't cheap. Starlog may have been the first $5 magazine back when magazines, were $1 or $2. But Starlog, because it was a lot of glossy color pages, it was expensive, and oh man, did I love my Starlogs. I had some from the late 70s. Here's a blast from the past. Anybody who read Starlog back in the day knows the back cover, the inside back cover and the back cover had some of the best stuff ever. And oh man, Don Post had a full-size face hugger mask in an acrylic case alongside a full-size Nosferatu mask with hands, and I think they were $500. I think the facehugger was $550. And oh, did I stare at that ad thinking what I would do if I had it. And we'd all sit around, man. Would you open it? Well, you have to. Would you put it on? Would you wear it? Man, you have to. It's a facehugger. But Starlog was where you got all your information from. And I remember picking up Starlog. I'd been reading it for years. But I'd never gone to a convention. I never made that leap to go, beyond my bedroom and my Star Wars posters and my action figures. But when Return of the Jedi wrapped up in '83, all of us Star Wars fans felt like there aren't any immediate plans for a new movie, so Star Wars could be over. And oh my gosh, what are we gonna do with our lives if Star Wars is over? But in Starlog, they had an article that said that the Worldcon, which is the big sci-fi convention of the year, and it used to be the go-to con because it was held a different place all around the world once a year, and it was the cool thing. But the difference is that Comic-Con has kind of eclipsed it. It's eclipsed Comic-Con now, and it's funny too because you say Comic-Con, and when I say it, I mean San Diego. What else would you mean? But there are Comic-Cons all over New York, Arizona, you name it, because I watch all the YouTube videos. But before Comic-Con gained its immense popularity, and we'll talk about that later in the podcast. Worldcon was the number one because that's where they gave out the Saturn Awards, which are the sci-fi equivalent of the Oscars, and they had the big masquerade. It was everything that Comic-Con was, but geared mostly towards sci-fi, right? But you know, when I finally went, that wasn't true. So I saw the ad in Starlog, and the big gimmick was that they were going to show the Star Wars trilogy back to back. Now I've talked about this in my Star Wars trilogy episode, so I'll try to skip over it. But that was the need to go. That was the reason to go, because you'd have this. I didn't know what to expect at the convention, but I knew that the day would be capped off with seeing the Star Wars movies back to back to back. And oh my gosh, this is a time like when home video was in its infancy. I mean, we had a beta player, but Return of the Jedi wasn't even available on beta. It didn't come out till '85. But this was the way to see movies, you know, on the big screen. And it wasn't a big theater. They had this in one of the ballrooms, but to a 12-year-old kid, nothing else mattered. So I begged my mother. I said, you have got to take me to this. And I think the tickets were $20 or $30 a piece. It was not cheap for 1984. But gosh, my mom, she took me there. The only stipulation she had was I couldn't go in costume, because I wanted to go as Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi. But she told me I couldn't go in costume because it wasn't Halloween. I'm not walking around with you in a costume. Of course, when we got there, we were the only ones not in costume, which was pretty funny. But I remember it was at the Anaheim Convention Center, and I just remember walking in and being amazed. It was a giant dealer's room with every kind of collectible you could imagine. And this is before Star Wars toys were considered valuable. They were considered collectible because guys like me, we collected them all. But I can still remember seeing a dealer who had a C-3PO case and a Darth Vader case, and each one, they were filled with a full collection. I don't think they all fit, obviously, but you could buy the full set of standard issue Star Wars figures up to that point, and I think he wanted $75. Think about that. There must have been, at that point, because this is before Power of the Force, so, or, you know, right at the cusp of Power of the Force. So it must have been 70 or 80 figures, maybe $1 a piece, plus you get the case. But who wanted to pay that? Star Wars figures were still available in stores. Why would I buy from this guy? So I passed on it. And I passed because I had all the figures up to that point. My mother was very diligent in making sure I had every character. And, you know, if it's a Stormtrooper, you got to have 2 or 3, otherwise you can't arrest anybody, right? So we went to this convention, and it was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And we saw all these crazy, amazing things, right? And it was funny because the memories I have are basically of my mom being wowed by it. I was over the moon. This was like coming home, you know. There were every kind of Star Wars character represented in costume. I can remember seeing a girl dressed as Oola and being taken aback because Oola's even more... if you don't know who Oola is, maybe you shouldn't listen, but for those of you who want to catch up to the class, you in the back, sir, you want to catch up? Oola is Jabba's green dancer that he throws into the Sarlacc pit before Princess Leia. And Oola wears black mesh, and even though there's more fabric to it, there's actually less coverage to it. And I think this girl's breasts were visible. So as a 12-year-old, almost 13-year-old kid, I could... I was sorry, my phone's going off. I try to turn it off during the podcast, but this is a busy Halloween haunt week and a busy Comic-Con week, so things are going off the scale. And I want to get this episode up before I go to Comic-Con because I won't be home Saturday to put a new episode up. And I'm really trying to stick to that 1 episode a week schedule, right? But as a 12-year-old, seeing that girl dressed as Zula, I was like, oh my gosh. I don't know why I like her costume so much, but I sure do. But Worldcon was great, and they gave us, you have a big souvenir book, and at the screening of the 3 Star Wars movies, they gave you a button that says, I sat through the trilogy with the date of LA Con 2, September 2nd through 3rd, 1984. I'm looking at it right now. It's one of my prized possessions. I think I said that before. But I just remember it being so much fun, like, the con life, you know. And after that, me and my group of friends, we hit the ground running. And if there was a convention anywhere near where we lived, we managed to get there. There was a company called Creation Con, and they would put on a con every 2 or 3 months, just a small one, nothing to write home about, right? But we would find a way to go to that, and these Creation Cons usually had some sort of moderate theme, like they'd have some Star Trek people there, or they'd call it a Star Trek thing, or Buck Rogers, whatever it was. But they were fun because for the most part, it was the best way to get collectibles. And my friends and I collected weird stuff. Like we liked the stuff you got at the store, but the cons were the place to get stuff like fake movie props, replicas. There was a guy named John Marcos that made the best Star Wars stuff of all time. He was the first guy to have amazing looking lightsabers and stormtrooper helmets. He had Battlestar Galactica Viper helmets, Colonial Viper helmets, and all kinds of stuff. Like, it was just amazing. And I remember one of the cons was at I think it was at the Anaheim Convention Center. It was a real small one, because I remember afterwards we went over to the Disneyland Hotel, to that underwater arcade. Remember that arcade underneath the pool? That was so awesome. And I remember it was the first time we saw the Return of the Jedi arcade game, that side sort of crooked one where you're on a speeder bike. Man, good times. But I remember at the tail end of John Marcos's thing, he was just selling stuff like he didn't care. I bought a Stormtrooper helmet for like $40, and I wish I still had it, but I think I sold it on eBay for $500 or $600 because it was really accurate, all vacuum formed, really nice. But the conventions were the place for that. And you met all these strange people. I remember one time meeting a guy in a full visitor costume, and he wore the costume the whole weekend. That's all he wore. He had a tongue thing that he put on his tongue to give him the forked tongue, and I have no idea who that guy even is. But for a weekend, he was my best friend, and that's what cons are. It's like little tiny relationship with people. You meet somebody and you're going to have the greatest time of your life for 3 days, and then it's over with. But we got to a point where the single day conventions, like any guy hooked on something, it wasn't enough. We needed more. So my friend Eric and I were like total cohorts in convention times, man. We found 2 local conventions that were annual. There was one called Equicon, and another one called LostCon. I don't think it's the same LostCon that WorldCon was associated with, but LostCon and Equicon were both held primarily at the Pasadena Hilton. And you have to understand, again, like I've said a few times on the podcast, these are different times, and the stuff that we got away with back then would never fly these days. Like, example, we discovered that if you volunteered at a convention, you didn't have to pay for tickets. So that meant, $25, $30 more in your pocket for convention stuff. So right away, Eric and I volunteered for everything. We would do anything, stand at a door, whatever, collate papers, anything to get our foot in the door to not have to pay, right? And I remember the first time we went to Equicon, and when I'll go, we're going back to different time, right? The first time we went to Equicon, my mother drove us to Pasadena. We lived in Norwalk. So this is 20, 30 miles from the house. She drove us to Pasadena Hilton, dropped us off at the door on Friday morning and said, "I'll see you guys Sunday." We didn't have a hotel room. We just lived in the Pasadena Hilton for the weekend. So much fun, man. Me and my friend Eric just running the place, man. And gosh, so many inside jokes were born out of those weekends. We went there was a bathroom off the lobby one time, and Eric went in and comes running out, and he goes, "There's a guy passed out on the toilet." And I was like, "What? I gotta go look." So we went and we looked, and there's this guy hunched over. I think he was wearing a costume of some sort, maybe a Star Trek costume. And he's hunched over the toilet, snoring, like on the bowl, snoring. So we go and get one of the guys from the hotel. We're like, "There's a guy in the bathroom asleep." And this guy didn't believe us. So he goes in, He comes out all pale, and we go, well? And he goes, he's passed out, man. He's passed out. I'm like, yeah, he's passed out. So I think he got like a broom and nudged the guy to get him up. But God, the weekends were just filled with so much adventure and meeting people. And Equicon, man, this must have been 1986, Equicon 86. So named because it was always held during Easter for the equinox. Hello. This was a convention put on by a bunch of people, but primarily by B. Joe Trimble. Now, I was a young kid. I was in 86 for Equicon. I was 14. So I didn't have any clue who B. Joe Trimble was. But, you know, in hindsight, B. Joe Trimble was the person who saved Star Trek. Like, she's a major force in the fandom. Pardon the pun of using the word force. But she was a major player, right? And she was fighting like... Sorry, I just knocked my microphone screen. She was a major player in the convention. And I remember she just looked at us two young guys, couldn't understand like what the deal was, but we were there to volunteer. So she put us in charge of the exhibit room. It was a little tiny exhibit room where they had movie props. And she told us, they brought us blankets and pillows, and we were there to quote unquote guard it. So Eric and I slept in the exhibit hall on blanket. I mean, this is the greatest thing ever, man. We lived at the convention. How much fun is that? And it was even cooler because we were surrounded by movie props that we actually knew. Like, I can remember there being a mothership from V. You know, how cool is that? It was a mothership from V. And even cooler for me was the V shuttle, which I love the V shuttle because it looked like the Star Wars Imperial shuttle that someone had put in a garbage masher. You know, it's the same color and everything. Just a cool design. But that was such a fun time because there were no rules, you know, there was no danger. It was just me and Eric living in the hotel all weekend. So much fun. We met this guy, Rick Overton, and he was famous sort of because he was in Beverly Hills Cop. He's the guy that, he's the supervisor at the warehouse who turns to his coworker after Axel Foley has messed with him and said, "Did you give this guy a match?" We were like, "It's the did you give this guy a match guy from Beverly Hills Cop?" Now Rick Overton was making these little models, and it's funny I mean, you know now what they are, but at the time I had no concept. This was 1986. He was making Victorian era flying ships that looked like they were out of copper and iron. And he was doing steampunk in 86, and he was really into it because all this stuff had little rivets, and he was very good at it. But we were impressed because he was a celebrity of sorts. And I think at the time he was getting ready to go do Willow, and we thought that was the greatest. I mean, he couldn't tell us at the time, but gosh, you can imagine not that long after seeing the trailers for Willow. And there's the guy from the convention is a major part of Willow. You know, he's one of the little brownies with Kevin Pollak, man. So that was cool. And Eric and I, we had a good time. And sometimes our friend Richard would come along. So there'd be a bunch of us, and we would go over all of our convention swag. Toby Taylor went with us a bunch of times. Toby just gave me not that long ago some of those buttons from like 86 and 87. And what a trip it is to see all that old stuff, because I don't know where some of mine ended up, but he had it all. So it was really cool to see some of the stickers and the buttons and stuff they used to give out. And we just did the convention circuit like that, man. Any little con that popped up, we did. And it culminated in a really amazing con experience, which was the Star Wars 10th anniversary convention. It was held at the Stouffer Concourse Hotel right by LAX, and oh, we were so excited. This was it was a creation con, but it was their big flagship con. And we knew it was going to be big because they were advertising that George Lucas was going to be there, and Anthony Daniels, and there was going to be a display of Lucasfilm archive exhibit. I mean, it was really going to be fantastic. And you know what? It totally was. Now, this was one where my mother got us a hotel room. We didn't have to sleep in the hotel somewhere. We actually had a room, and it was me and Eric, and this guy Larry, and I think Vaughn was there all the days too. We just sort of piled into this room, and man, was it fun. Oh my gosh. The dealer room was mostly Star Wars stuff, so I was in heaven. The giveaways were Star Wars. The display was fantastic because they had a bunch of stuff. You know, they had a speeder bike and some of the models and stuff. I just remember being really impressed because they brought the Ark of the Covenant. And even though it wasn't Star Wars, the Ark of the Covenant, if you've never seen it up close, is a beautiful piece of art. Like, it looks as powerful as it's portrayed in the movies. And it's just like, you just want to take it home and put it in your living room because it's the Ark of the Covenant. So there was some cool stuff there. Now, I didn't wait in the 6-hour line to see the George Lucas presentation. I wasn't really sure what it was. And with convention time so limited, you got to pick and choose what you're going to do. And I wasn't going to invest that amount of time in maybe seeing a little tiny George Lucas on a stage. We did run into Anthony Daniels at a payphone. Boy, doesn't that date it. Above all things, doesn't saying we ran into Anthony Daniels at the payphone say it all, right? We asked him for his autograph, but he kind of rebuffed. He was polite about it, but he rebuffed us and said, I'm going to be signing them later. I was like, oh, whatever, you're C-3PO. You can do whatever you want. This is your con. But it was a good time. And that was also the con that I've talked about it in another podcast, and I'll briefly touch here. They had a big display of Spaceballs because Spaceballs was coming out. They had all the costumes, they had buttons, and we managed to find out that they were sneak previewing it that night. So we flew down the freeway with our Spaceballs buttons and managed to get into the screening and meet Mel Brooks. So, that's a pretty darn cool weekend, right? I remember we went to a party at somebody's room, and for 15-year-old kids at a con, a party means there were free sodas, But I can remember somebody had a replica of a pulse rifle from Aliens, and we just thought, oh, look how cool that is. Because, we were moving farther away from Star Wars. 87, you're 4 years past the last movie. So it was a weird time in that fandoms were allowed to sort of fade away and die off, and Star Wars was fading away. There was no movie on the horizon. The TV shows had all, they'd been dismal at that point. So all of us fanboys were looking for other things to glom onto. And, it wasn't going to be Howard the Duck, right? But Aliens was pretty high up on our list. And that pulse rifle was really cool, because this is back when replica weapons were really hard to put together. You had to know somebody who had one. You had to get the weapon, pull a mold, and then get it back before they got upset with you. And you couldn't damage it, My friend Greg managed to do that with a bunch of stuff. Like, he was able to get a first season Next Generation phaser, a V-gun, and a bunch of a tricorder. And he managed to get these props for like a day or two so he could quickly put a mold on them and then get them back, so then we could just sit and make them all day. But those were great times, and that Star Wars convention was fantastic. I still have my T-shirt from it. My one of my kids still wears it. But it just a real love fest. And one of the cool things was they had a giant 6 or 7 foot, must be 7 or 8 foot tall Star Wars greeting card, and they invited all the fans to sign their name. So I signed my name on it. And at work, this guy Daniel got the Star Wars archive book, and it has a replica of the card, a smaller replica. But I'll be darned if you can't see my name on it, and that's pretty cool. I remember going to a con later and seeing a presentation by Steve Sansweet, and he was showing slides from the Lucasfilm archives, and seeing the card nestled in the archives with my name on it was pretty cool. Like, I've made my stamp on it, along with 1,000 other fanboys, but I'm in there. And when we went to the 30th anniversary convention in 2007, the Star Wars, they had the card there. And oh my gosh, my family and I spent like 45 minutes trying to find my name. But darn it, we found it. I signed it twice even, and we found both of them. I'll try to find the video of that so I can throw that up on the page to commemorate this episode. Let me know in the comments if these are working, because I do like to back up my stories with pictures and things that pertain to it. Just sort of, to flesh it out, to give it a nice all-around solid feel, And I'll also let you know that I'm not I'm not lying. Although I wish that cameras had been more prevalent back in the 80s. I come from a time when you had to put film in a camera. It's like, what's film? Yeah, you had to put film in a camera and take a picture and then have that picture developed, and it was very expensive. So you didn't waste pictures on nonsense. And I wish I'd had a camera at all these conventions just so I could have more of a visual record of what those days were like, because they were so much fun. Then we moved from sci-fi cons, and we did these whenever they came up. So it wasn't like we did one and then a different brand. It's like whatever con was that weekend we went to, we found a way. And we didn't always pay. We found creative ways to get into the con without paying, like volunteering or finding somebody who paid and getting their hand stamp, or going in through the kitchen, or a million other ways, right? But we even did the Fangoria convention for a while, and that was fun. Now, I like horror. I'm not a real big horror guy, which is funny because I work at Not Scary Farm. But I'm not gung-ho about horror movies. Like, there was a time when I really liked Freddy Krueger. There was a real push that he got with merchandise and stuff, and that worked on me. But like, I never emulated the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I remember when Child's Play came out, they really marketed the heck out of Chucky. And when I worked at the video store, they got in these Chucky dolls that you could suction cup to your window like Garfield, the anti-Garfield. They were cool, and everybody at the store fought over them. But I managed to get 2 or 3, and we had finagled the Fangoria Con to give us a table. And I'm not even sure why. We weren't big in the horror community. We were just nerds. Now, I know my friend Greg had paid a lot of money to have somebody laser etch. Now, you have to understand the time that we're doing this. He had these plastic squares laser etched to look like the Hellraiser cube. Then he pulled a mold, and then he kept pulling copies out. So we would go to the con and sell all these Hellraiser boxes. They cost $1 to make, and I think he was getting 50 or 60 a piece, depending on the paint job or what he had done to it. We had some under glass, little domes, like in the movie, like in part 3. But I put these Chucky dolls on the table, and oh my gosh, I think I got $70 or $80 for them. Like even I was stunned at what they were selling for. But that was good times, And the other thing that we did at those cons was I love to build models, and I used to take models and modify them. Like, they didn't always have a model kit of the thing you wanted, so you could do whatever you wanted. I remember once taking a bunch of Airwolf helicopter models from, oh my gosh, it might have been Pick and Save, Big Lots. And I built them and made them look nice. And then I took the Batman trading cards, cut out the bat symbol, made it real thin so it resembled a sticker that you got with a model kit, and then glued that on the side and made the Batcopter. I was selling those for $30 or $40 a piece at these Fango cons, man. That was so cool. Making money, having fun, hanging out with your friends. Going to cons is great, but having a table, that is the best. Because you have a place of operations, you can go check out the con, and then you go back to the table, drop your stuff off. If you go as just a guest, like I'm going to Comic-Con this week, you're lugging that stuff all day. Thank goodness Comic-Con has the sense to give you the greatest swag bags of all time, and they've really refined them. They've got a place for posters. They go on your back. They got plenty of advertising on them for whatever property pays the most to get on the bag, right? But at least they saw what the problem was, because for a while they were just giving little plastic bags and they weren't working. And then they went to those gigantic bags that you put on your arm and go all the way to the floor. I'm a short guy, those could have been sleeping bags for me. So those didn't always work out. Yeah, I always had to tie the handle together to make them shorter so that I could handle that. But yeah, the bag situation's great, and you have to carry your stuff around. But if you've got a table, like, that's what it's about. So in the 90s, I still went to conventions. I still went to a lot of creation cons, a lot of Star Trek cons. The Pasadena Convention Center was holding either a creation con or a Toyrific show, which is a con, almost every month. And when I met Rachel, I just sort of indoctrinated her into going to these things. And we really looked forward to them. And we did the same. It's weird because we did the same life cycle where we went to the cons, we had so much fun, we'd buy stuff, we'd hang out, and then eventually we got a table, because it's you reach a point where, yes, I'm having fun, but I could be making money and meeting people, so we get a table, sell toys. It was fun because, as you can tell, I got a big mouth, and people either love me or hate me. So at the conventions, I'd have a certain segment that liked what I was doing and liked how I had my table and the way I talked, and then other people would come over and just go, you're obnoxious. And I go, me? Really? I had no idea. I made enemies. How do you make enemies at a toy show? But yes, there it was. Made enemies at a toy show. One year, this must have been 93, 94, because we made Jack Skellington heads out of Sculpey and put them on necklaces. We went through an assembly line. I really figured out how to make those look movie accurate, and we'd buy a block of Sculpey for $5 and make, oh my gosh, 60 or 70 Jack heads out of it and sell them for $5 a piece. We were making a lot of money doing that, and some of the toy dealers were like not happy with me. It's weird because you think nowadays with Etsy and the cons all have an entire area of homemade stuff. Back then it was frowned upon, like you're breaking copyrights. Like, no, it's art. I'm offering people something they can't get out of a mass merchandise place. This is one of a kind. Oh no, and it really came to a head when one of the dealers wanted to trade a bunch of stuff to me for a whole bunch of Jackheads, and I was all about it because to me it's just Sculpey. And I remember another dealer came over and just sort of soured the deal. He's like, this is homemade stuff. You're selling you're going to trade legitimate toys for it. I remember thinking, why do you care, man? But yeah, I made enemies at a toy show. It's so silly, you know. He's going to shoot me with his Nerf gun outside, right? But we had a good time, Rachel. We were doing those shows all the time at the Orange County Convention Center, Toyrific shows in Pasadena. And God, just so much fun and make a lot of money. You know, it was fun to make a lot of money. And the weird part is you buy the toys, you sell them at a profit, you make a lot of money, you buy more toys. It's a never-ending cycle, you know. And the convention always helps out with that, right? We finally Rachel and I went to, I think this was another creation con. Like Creation ruled the roost in the 90s for cons. Any con had a creation connection, or they did those Star Trek cruises for a while, and everybody was digging. I never did that, though. I never did the floating convention. I don't have that kind of scratch. But Rachel and I did this con. We actually went to a con because it was local. It was in Anaheim, and it was the first appearance at a convention of Mark Hamill. And oh my gosh, was that so cool. Mark talked for about almost an hour, I think. It was him and Billy Mummy from Lost in Space. And I think Mark was just finally testing the waters, like, do people want to see me? Do people care? And oh my gosh, we care, Mark. You're Luke Skywalker to us. You know, they're making Star Wars 7 right now, so it's no doubt that everybody still loves Luke Skywalker. But we stood in line. I got stuff signed. I got my picture with him. I met his son, who was just a teenager at the time. And I looked at him, and I looked at his son, and I said, do you have any idea what your father means to people? He had no clue. And, you know, kids don't have that. But it was just weird, like, this is Luke Skywalker. And I got in line, I got to meet him, and it was, you know, I don't think he even charged. I think he was just there to have a good time. He signed whatever you want, and he took a picture with you. No charge. Imagine that now. I mean, if Mark Hamill did a convention now, I bet it's $60 or $70 to get his autograph, and then even more to have your picture taken with him. But you know, I don't begrudge anybody that, because if somebody wants to pay for some commodity you have, whether it's stuff or and they want to pay, you take their money. You know, that's the world that we live in. You know, sometimes you do it for free, sometimes you get money for it. You know, that's just the way it goes. And I don't begrudge any of those celebrities the opportunity for that, you know. I do think that as much as I want to meet Claudia Wells from Back to the Future, because she just started doing the convention circuit, I think $30 for her autograph is pricey. Now, I don't know what it costs for her to get there and have the table and make the photos, so maybe that's what she needs to break even, and God bless her, but I top out at 20. You know, I top out at one bill. Here's a $20 bill for your autograph, thank you. I paid that so that my son could meet the guy who played the Gorn, and who knows? I don't even know who that guy is. And I paid $20 for Rachel to meet and get a picture with Mark Singer, who was in V and Beastmaster. But it's Mike Donovan from V. Of course, $20 is a no-brainer. This after Star Wars ended, V was the closest to sci-fi you could get, and he was the quote-unquote Luke Skywalker Han Solo of that show. So, well, maybe Ham Tyler was Han Solo, right? Han. Am I sensing something there? But I don't mind paying for autographs. And I've bought some amazing stuff over the years at conventions. I remember there's one item I didn't get. I'll tell you about that one. I've always wanted a Luke Skywalker headset radio. It's a very early Kenner item. It was a recolored one from the Bionic Man series, the $6 Million Man. And they just made it look, just like the one Luke wears in the Falcon. And the box art is great because it's my favorite picture of Luke sitting in the gunner's chair. I've told my kids when they get older and have jobs, if they want to buy me a gift, I want a carded vintage Luke Skywalker of Luke in the gunner's chair. And it's Farm Boy Luke, and I think it's either an Empire or a Jedi card. It's a variant, and it's quite expensive, which is why I don't own it myself. But I would love to have that one. So I was trying to buy this headset radio just because I really like the odd stuff. And I remember it was like $30. I was like, oh my gosh, I'll take that for $30. And some other guy was like, I'll give you $35. And I was like, oh, we're going to get in a bidding war right here on the convention floor? I was like, that's not how I operate. It's $30. I looked at the guy and said, I'll give you $30 for it like you've got it priced. And he wanted the $35. Like, again, I can't blame the guy for wanting the more money out of it, but I felt kind of weird, like, I'm willing to buy it for the price you've got it offered, and this guy's coming in. It was a really weird scene. Again, somebody wants to fight me at a convention. I had that happen at Comic-Con over a pack of G.I. Joe playing cards they were handing out. Some guy was going to fight me, and I was like, I don't care enough about the cards to fight you, dude. What kind of jerk are you getting your underwear in a twist at Comic-Con? Like, everybody knows it's going to be busy. It's going to be sweaty. There are going to be long lines. Relax. Like, I'm just not a fighting guy, and at cons especially, I'm there to have a good time. But I really wanted that Luke Skywalker headset radio. And you know what? Gosh, that was 15, 16, 17 years ago, and I have never seen one since in the flesh. I'm sure you can get one on eBay. I don't want to pay that price. I want to see it in the case and just buy it, and I've never had that opportunity again. Thankfully, the other item I was able to buy, in pretty much the same time period, was a guy had the Droids lightsaber. And if you don't know what the Droids lightsaber is, it's the one from 1985 that the blade pops out. Like, it was the only one of the vintage area that they ever had do that. And I just thought, it's so weird and cool, and I just want one. And I think it was $50. I held it in my hand, I put it back, I looked at it, I put it back, and Rachel finally said, you should just buy it because you're never going to get the chance again. And she reminded me about that stupid headset radio. So I bought the Droids lightsaber, and you know what? I still have it to this day. And I've never seen a loose one near that price ever again. So I made the right choice, right? Other amazing stuff at con. I remember going to Comic-Con not that long ago, and a guy had a whole box of vintage Star Wars figures in little plastic boxes, all priced accordingly, right? And I picked up a Blue Snaggletooth priced $30. Now, Blue Snaggletooth is a rare figure, part of the Sears exclusive Cantina, right? And I said, are these all priced the way they're supposed to be? And the guy got really irritated. Whatever the price is on them, that's what they are. I was like, okay, so their price is marked. That's what I said. And I'm trying to give this guy an out. Like, maybe he's priced it wrong, because this should really, at the minimum, be a $95 to $100 figure. And he goes, no, they're priced the way they are. I said, I'll take this one, no problem. I have a Blue Snaggletooth for a fraction of the cost at Comic-Con, where nothing is cheap. $30 is the price of a Starbucks Frappuccino in the lobby, right? So, let's see, what else have I bought at con? The last few cons I've bought the Gentle Giant 12-inch Star Wars, which is like a replica of the vintage action figures from Kenner. I just think they're cool. They're one of a kind. They're original. I love going to cons, man. I love con exclusive stuff. I buy and sell that all the time. I'm going to buy as much exclusive stuff this week at Comic-Con as I can. But you know, the thing that really makes con amazing is, I touched on it earlier, it's these many relationships and amazing moments that you have at conventions. And when I was a kid, I was such a Star Wars fan, and I loved Star Wars so much. The idea that I could go to a con, and you know, I lived Star Wars the way kids did in the 70s, through the cassette tape that you followed along with the book and the record and the holiday special and trading cards. You know, I had trading cards everywhere, all the series. And it never occurred to me that as I got to be an adult, that the things that seemed so far out of reach, and Star Wars was mainly filmed in England at Elstree Studios, which is, you know, a world away, that it seemed so out of reach. And that was part of the appeal of Star Wars. It wasn't from around the block. It was from a long way off, right? That one time, and this is not that long ago, probably 2006, I went to Comic-Con. My kids are in the lobby. They're dressed in costume. Luke was dressed as Kingdom Hearts guy, and Josie was very small. She was dressed as Snow White. She would never let us do that now. And Austin was Greedo, because Austin was Greedo most of his childhood. But I remember going to the bathroom, and when I came back out, Dave Prowse was talking to my kids about their costume, because he was so struck with how good they looked and how cute they were. And they don't know who he is. He's just some guy at the con being friendly. And I'll tell you what, I almost started crying. That's Darth Vader. That's Darth Vader talking to my kids. I would never have believed that kind of moment possible. And it's only at conventions that things like that happen. You know, there's real magic to be found. Yes, it's a hassle getting there and getting the tickets, and it's expensive, and every move's a line. But you know what? The reason you do it, the reason that you brave all of those obstacles, is that what you get out of it is so rich and so amazing. And moments like that, and I've just met so many amazing people. I'm going to bring Rachel on the show in just a few minutes, and we're going to do an interview back and forth about what Comic-Con means as a family. And there'll probably be some overlap, because she's not listened to what I've talked to yet. But I've been going to conventions since I was 12, and I can't imagine ever not going to conventions. Now I'm at a point where I've published 3 books. I want to have a table at these conventions to sell my book. And we've done the last 2 WonderCons, 2013 and 14. We have sold my books, the 6th Key series. And we sold enough to pay for the table, which to me is a win, because the weekend didn't cost anything. It was a straight, you know, even. And we got the books into people's hands. And I've had people come up in year 2, had people come up and talk to me about how they bought the first one and they can't wait to buy the sequel, and it's really humbling. Like, that's why you do it, you know. And only at conventions is that kind of amazing event going to happen, you know. You can meet people from all over the world. Rachel and I once shared a pedicab from the Holiday Inn all the way to the convention center, it was a good 2 miles, I think. And this pedicab guy just hoofed us down the road. But we shared it with a guy from Australia who had come to Comic-Con alone. And we just were so taken with this guy, because what a leap of faith it is to get on a plane and fly to the other side of the world alone, knowing that the reason you're going is that the minute you arrive, you're never going to be alone the whole trip. There's always going to be someone there who's proudly displaying what they're into, and you're proudly displaying what you're into, and there's a common connection right there on the con floor. That's what cons are about. So we're going to take a break, just a couple of seconds, and when I come back, I'm not even going anywhere. I'm going to have my wife Rachel on, and we're going to talk about, mostly talk about Comic-Con, because that's what's coming up this week, and that's what's going on. And my family and I have been to a lot of Comic-Cons, so stay tuned. All right, we're back with the second half of 91 Reasons. We're talking about conventions and going to conventions, and you've heard me rattle on about all my early convention years, and now we're going to move on to the modern day convention era, and we're joined for the first time ever. There's a guest on 91 Reasons. We've never had anybody on the show but me. You're going to hear another voice, so please don't be alarmed. The voice you hear is normal. It's just not me. So we're sitting here with my wife, Rachel. Say hi, Rachel.
Hello.
And my daughter, Josie. Say hi.
Hi.
And they're convention professionals. So, Rachel, tell me about the first convention you remember going to.
I'm trying to think. I remember going to San Diego Comic-Con. I don't remember the year, though. I just know Luke was young and we stayed with family.
After 97.
After 97, probably around 2002 or 3.
For the first time? No. Luke was an infant when we went to Comic-Con.
Oh, I only remember when he stayed with our family, Brandy, and then when we were in San Diego.
Right, so he was quite young. In 2003, he would have been 5, so we probably would have taken him. But those early years were totally different. So Rachel and I used to go to Comic-Con, and this is how long ago it was. We could not make any advanced plans to go and simply drive up to the convention center, park relatively easy for about $10, walk over to the convention center, and either get in line for a $20 ticket, which there were plenty of, or a couple of years in a row, we volunteered. And for about 2 hours of your time, you could volunteer, and you didn't have to pay for the ticket. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. That was a lot of fun and a lot cheaper.
Right, because you could take that $20 right over to the dealer room. Now, they had me guarding art. I remember, because this is back when the convention center wasn't crammed with things, and there was actually room, because now the art display is up on the sale at Comic-Con, which is up on the second level. But back then, it was right on the floor. They just carved out space on the floor. It's crazy to think about that now, because they would never carve out space on the floor for art. It just wouldn't happen, because there's no money to be made there. There's no studio, no cartoon, no video game, blah, blah, blah. But back then, they just said, okay, you guard this art for like 2 hours, right? You did what? Do you remember?
I also guarded art. I did the same thing.
Yeah, so we guarded art. And it was funny, because it was art nobody wanted to steal. You know, Comic-Con's usually a pretty good group of people who respect the popular arts. They're not going to steal the art. So I don't think it was any danger of people stealing.
But you got to watch the whole floor. Like, you could see everything from where I was guarding the floor. It was pretty much like I was at Comic-Con. I still got to people watch and see what people were shopping for. And it wasn't in a separate room. It was right in the middle of it all.
Right, and it was also back in a time where a single day you could see just about everything you wanted to see. There was no race to see it all, because there was not a lot outside the convention center.
Yeah, exactly. You could get it done in a day if you needed to, or it's not even possible now.
No, and this is before they built Petco Park. I mean, the Petco Park carved out so much space downtown and took out so much parking that now it's just a complete mess to try to park down there. And it's interesting, because the places that were for parking, the parking lots, have all been sold now to the studios for MTV concerts and Playboy Bunny parties and movie stuff. Yeah, it's weird to think, like, the place where Machete had their taco carts and all their stuff used to provide parking. So now the parking's been pushed even farther back, and what used to cost $10 is now $40. Did you guys pay $40 last year?
Oh, we went up as high as $60 on one day.
$60 to park.
Only the one day we were desperate.
60.
40 is the average, 40 to 50.
40 to 50. Now we park down by the beach, so it's only 20, but it is
quite a walk.
It is quite a walk, but I'm very cheap. So walking is not a big deal when that $20 can buy more stuff at the con, right, Josie?
Yep.
Now, how many cons? Come up here. How many cons have you gone to?
I've probably gone to about...
How old are you?
I'm 8, so...
So you've probably been to 8, right?
8
Actually,
cons.
More.
More?
That's 8 Comic-Cons. But you've also been to Wizard
yeah.
World and
WonderCon.
WonderCon and Kamikaze, and the Star Wars Anniversary Con.
Scarlet, everything.
Scarlet. Scarlet counts as a convention, right?
Sure does.
Yep.
So, what's your favorite convention?
I'm gonna have to go with WonderCon.
Oh, what? That's an interesting choice. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, and if you don't know, you shouldn't be listening to this, but WonderCon is Comic-Con's little brother, right?
Yep.
And it's usually held in San Francisco, but for the third year running, they've moved it to Anaheim. Now, do you remember the first year we went to WonderCon? You don't remember the first year?
No.
Where we met Candace Bailey from Attack of the Show? And
What?
what did I say that first year we went?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? What did I say, Rachel? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I said next year we're going to have a table.
Oh, you did
Because
say
I don't
that,
want to just walk around
Yes.
anymore. So what do you like most about WonderCon? Why is WonderCon the top?
I'm gonna have to say because WonderCon is the little brother to Comic-Con, so it's not as big as Comic-Con, and I can wander off on my own.
Which you have at 8.
Yes.
Yeah, you just like, hey, Mom, I'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
It does help that we have a booth and a check-in spot, and she knows where to go.
right.
Wouldn't do that.
And the fact that
Yeah,
she's
con.
dressed as a Marine commando with an AK-47, so no one's going to mess with her,
What?
right? No? What are you dressed as? What did you go dressed as? Oh, I'm sorry. What did you cosplay as? It was just a couple of months ago.
I don't remember.
You don't remember WonderCon?
Please stand by. We're experiencing technical difficulties while Josie tries to remember what it is that she dressed as.
I cosplayed as Anna from Frozen.
I'm not familiar. Was that some sort of movie or video game?
That's Frozen is a movie.
Oh, it's a movie.
Yes.
And you were Anna.
Yes.
One day.
Okay, one day.
You were a zombie with a chainsaw.
Yes. I was a
Okay.
zombie with a
So
chainsaw.
you went from Anna, princess in a Disney movie, to zombie
Yes.
with a chainsaw.
Yes. There's two different sides of me.
Oh, well, that's great. Okay. So you've been going to cons forever, right?
Pretty
What
much.
What is your general feel like? This episode is in celebration of Comic-Con because we're going the day after tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
What are you expecting to do or see at Comic-Con that makes it worth 2 hours each way in the car?
Probably all the cosplay and all the fans.
Yeah. What is cosplay?
Cosplay is where you put on a costume and say you're that character.
Okay. All right. So like Halloween every day.
Pretty much.
Okay. And then there are professional cosplayers that show up.
Yes.
Oh, look, you get all excited. Then you know these people?
I know certain ones. I don't know all of them. I know like 2.
Which two do you know?
I know Yaya Hans and Chloe Dexter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these are people you
Chloe.
know.
Yes.
Okay. And you're looking forward to seeing them in costume down there
Yes.
because now they're TV celebrities.
Yes.
Do you buy anything down there when you go?
Yes.
Excuse me. Do I buy anything for you down there? Oh,
Yes.
yeah. That's how it works out. What are you going to get this year?
I'm going to get a Derpy Hooves from My Little Pony plushie.
Okay. That means something to some people.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't quite understand the My Little Pony thing.
What?
I don't get it. It's not for me.
Oh
She
my.
can't believe it.
But then I don't watch Doctor Who either, so there's a lot I'm not hip to.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you agree with that? You agree with that? Now, we've done some crazy things at Comic-Con.
Yep.
We've stayed... Last year, we went all 4 days. We didn't go to preview night because it's too short. But all 4 days, up and back, each day we drove. 2 hours each
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
Didn't get any sleep. Just live the con
2
life.
hours, maybe.
Mhm.
Was it worth it?
I think
Yes.
it was.
Will it be worth it in 2 days?
Yes.
All right. Anything else you want to tell me about your con life?
Nope.
No, it's all in there. All right. Well, thank you. Josie Tucker, everybody. How old are you?
8.
8 years old. All right. Okay, we're back with Rachel now. We're going to continue on. What is your most vivid memory of going to Comic-Con or, any con in general?
There's so many. Every year it's something new. Highlight of last year, meeting Robert Kirkland on a stairway. Creator of Walking Dead just walked by me. That's awesome. I mean, where does that happen?
Comic-Con.
Well, if you stand in a 3-hour line usually, but sometimes you get lucky. And if you're really paying attention to the people around you, the year before that, I mean, Stan Lee walked right by us in the lobby at nighttime and stopped and posed with the kids in their pajamas late at night. I mean,
Yeah, that was a great moment. I went to the bathroom. We were at the at the Hyatt next door to Con. If you want a tip for Comic-Con this year, and I'm going to get this episode up in time, the Hyatt next door is it the Hyatt or the Marriott? It's the Marriott.
It's the Marriott. There goes all of our seats.
The Marriott is the secret because all the celebrities stay there. They move in and out of the bar and the restaurant to go to the con and around. And if you sit there long enough, the entire con will pass you by.
It's an awesome place to set and charge your phone for a little bit because guaranteed in 30 minutes, somebody will walk by you.
Yeah. Now, so what happened when Morgan Spurlock? Remember Morgan Spurlock made that Comic-Con movie a few years back? We were there for the entire production of that. My daughter Josie's even in the coffee table book dressed as Robin. But we staked out the Marriott because they were filming. And, I saw Harry Knowles from Ain't It Cool. We saw Joss Whedon. We saw Morgan Spurlock, the guy who made the movie. Now, what happened when we saw Morgan Spurlock?
I cried like a baby and attacked him. Along that line. The first time I met him.
Yeah.
I didn't cry every time after, but the first time was...
But you teared up.
Oh, yes. Forever. Every time.
Now, this is the guy whose biggest claim to fame is he ate McDonald's for a month.
That's one of the best movies ever, though. If you're going to do the best movie ever, you can claim to fame for life for it.
All right. Okay. All right. But we've also just sitting there I've been in line at Starbucks at the Marriott, and Todd McFarlane walked up and started talking to the guy next to me, and I was like, that's Todd McFarlane. And the guy was like, yeah, I know. That's why he came up and talked to me. I'm like, oh, okay, well, carry on then. Carry on then, Mr. McFarlane. You're only worth $10 billion. We've seen game show hosts, and remember that ABC relaunch V? The guy who was on V was sitting there having dinner one night.
Right next to us the whole day.
It's really surreal because you're not waiting in a line. They're just walking through. And I think the thing that Rachel appreciates is I know everybody. And I can eyeball somebody and within a second and a half tell you exactly who they are, what their credits are.
Where I go, gosh, they look familiar. And it drives me crazy.
I just walk up and I go, hey, Kevin Spacey just walked by.
Oh,
and
that was a good one.
And what happened then?
I think I left Josie in the stroller, left her and took off running down the aisles to chase him.
To chase Kevin Spacey.
I got some great photos.
Okay. And then
It's worth it.
I went back to that other story is I went to the bathroom. This is late after the con has ended for the day. This must have been, I want to think Friday or Saturday night. And I come back from the bathroom. Apparently, Stan Lee walked through with his handlers. And, Stan's, he loves his fans. But even Stan gets tired. And his handlers were making sure that he got through the hotel lobby to his room and nobody bothered him. And
this was around 11:30.
Right. When people came up, the handlers were very clear, like, Mr. Lee needs to go to sleep. He's very tired. And who doesn't respect that? After everything he's done for the fans, who wouldn't respect that? But the funny part is my 3 kids are sitting there in their pajamas, and the handlers turned and said, Mr. Lee, you need to stop for these kids. And he, because my kids are about to pop because they know who he is. And he stopped and took a picture with them. That was pretty cool, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he was very nice.
And what's another funny quick story from last year is my kids went to a Homestuck panel because they're into Homestuck, which is
the whole panel itself.
Online thing that I don't have any grasp of. I don't understand what it is. But they went to a Homestuck panel, and they told me not only did they get pictures of Andrew Hussey, the guy they wanted to, and Ryan North, but this guy wanted his picture with them, and who was he? They showed me their phone, and I said, Luke, that's Clark Gregg from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's Agent Coulson. And he goes, oh yeah. Like he didn't even that's in a nutshell, that's what Comic-Con is. It is a bombardment of the senses so that you can't even get a breath. Just when you've seen, like, we walked across the street and C. Thomas Howell was walking down the street.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, I don't think our kids understand that everyone they ever want to meet, idolize, watch on TV, know they meet. And events like cons make that happen. And they live cons year round. So for them, it happens a lot. So they'll watch TV and they'll be like, oh, I want to meet them. And then they'll meet them a week later. And a lot of children don't understand that.
No. I didn't live a childhood like that. I didn't have access. I earlier in the show, I talked about how I didn't go to my first con until I was 12. And the biggest celebrity I saw that day was Carrie Fisher. Who?
See, I sort of grew up with that lifestyle. My dad knew a lot of celebrities, so we went to Vegas to see them all the time. So to me, it's a little bit more truer to what I grew up with, but on a just bigger scale.
And here's the thing with my family is that it's never enough. They would go to a con every weekend if they could swing it. They would live the con lifestyle out of hotel rooms from coast to coast.
I truly believe the boys will. I truly believe that they're going to try to do some sort of professional cosplay and travel and do nothing but cons. If they can make it happen, they will do that. They
will somehow get somebody to pay them.
Yes, and I think they're smart enough that they can figure it out.
That's a tough road. There are not any successful male cosplayers. It's just not a thing yet.
I know.
There are plenty of men that will pay for a Ya Han poster, but most women won't buy a poster of a man dressed up as RoboCop. They just won't do it.
That's true.
You know, I would buy a poster of a guy dressed as RoboCop, but most women, you know, there's only a certain segment of women that will go to those Chippendale shows. So the segment even lower than that would be willing to buy a guy dressed up as a celebrity that it's not really them. You know, there are plenty of guys dressed up as Jack Sparrow, but you're only into them because they're not asking for $20 for a poster, right?
Yeah.
But we've been going to cons forever. We're going to go to them from now until the end. Certainly now that I have something to promote, since I go promoting my books, and now that I'm doing this insane podcast project, because you know what I need is more stuff to do, right? But we have done it all. We have stood on the street handing out tiaras and horns with the name of the book on it. We have I've gone for Not Scary Farm and handed out flyers. That was really fun because they gave me so many flyers. And we did our best to get rid of all of them. So I had my kids on a street corner screaming like a kid in one of those newsy kids, you know, read all about it. Except Austin was screaming, 10 sinister stage shows, 13 mazes.
He was really good at it.
Right, and I was telling the crowd, yeah, listen, if you don't take the flyer from the kid, he doesn't eat tonight. You know, treat it like Oliver. But there are so many vivid memories of going to con. Last year we've gone twice for Knott's, where we've gone all 5 days. But you know what? Those are such a blur because working the con is so different than going to the con that instead of 10,000 different mini experiences, working it becomes one long experience.
That's what I was just going to say about WonderCon. How WonderCon to me is, now that we have a table for the book, I'm very much looking forward to Comic-Con because I'm feeling like I'm finally going to a con.
Because you're off duty.
I didn't feel like I went to WonderCon. Unless you passed my table, that's the only way I really saw anything. So it's a much different, it really makes you realize the other side.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's weird to go to a con that many days in a row. Because remember the hoverboard girl last year, or was it year before? Year before. She was at the Mattel booth with the hoverboard, and we went back to her because Josie decided one day
she dressed as Marty.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. She decided that night she wanted to be Marty the next day, so we went back to take pictures with her. And you're just struck by, for us, the con is an enormous, almost monolithic space to try to fill. Like, you've got to see it all. But for that girl, her entire con was a 6 by 6 foot square.
And I totally get that.
You get that, right?
I do.
That's a completely different experience.
And it's fun. It's fun in its own way, but it's not the same at all.
Oh, gosh, no. Instead of you going to see the con comes to see you.
Exactly, yeah.
But we got lucky at our WonderCon table because just this past Easter, didn't Marilyn from Clerks come by the table?
She did. That was an amazing moment. And Andy Ristano.
Andy Ristano, which nobody knows.
Yeah,
Andy
but
Ristano.
we normally stalk him, and
he's
he
an artist.
Us.
He's an artist on Adventure Time that my kids love to bother. So it was fun to see him at our table. He actually drew a fin for us for the kids.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, and I told the story earlier about Dave Prowse talking to the kids, which I would never have believed that as a kid that I'd be at a con and Darth Vader would be talking to my kids. You know, in the Comic-Con movie, Kevin Smith says, if I could look back, you know, if my younger self could see that when we get older,
not only are we going to go to Comic-Con every year, but Stan Lee's going to know who we are. My younger self would say, how did you get so fat, right? But if I could tell my childhood self that we're going to go to these cons and like at WonderCon, it's weird when you go to these cons, you start to go in and out of all these different hotels, and hotels are a completely different world unto themselves, right? And they have bathrooms that are hidden in all these little nooks and crannies, right? I remember at WonderCon finding this really tiny bathroom, and it had one urinal, one stall, and the urinal was broke, so you had to go in the stall. So I get in the stall, and somebody comes in the bathroom. It's two guys, and they're talking about how it's taking too long. They need to go. And part of me was like, look, dude, you got to get in line. You know, the bathroom has a line, and I'll be done when I'm done. And then I walked out, and it was Peter Mayhew who plays Chewbacca. And he's not a very healthy guy, so I felt terrible. But I had to go. You got to go, right, Josie? But tell my 8-year-old self that when I look at my Star Wars cards, and there's a really fun card of Stuart Freeborn putting makeup on Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca, right, in the Orange series, and I'm going to be in a bathroom where Chewbacca needs to get in next, and not a guy in a Chewie costume, Chewbacca. I would never have believed it. Never in a million years. I've said it before in the con, but my wife and kid weren't here to back me up on this. All your dreams can come true at a con, right, Josie?
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
You
So
can
right.
take all those things that you like, all those intangibles, video games, movies, TV shows, cartoons, toys, and they somehow become more real. You meet the person behind who writes, who directs, who draws, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you go.
I remember one of the very first people I met was Olivia, who does the Betty Page art. And little did I know I would see her every year for the rest of my life, every Comic-Con. But that first year, it was just so like, wow, she's here and she's signing stuff. And she was very personal and just a normal person and talking to everybody. And you just walk up to the table and talk to her. And then the next year, I'm like, oh, there she is again. And then I realized, oh, okay, this is a lifestyle and this is how they do it.
Right. And the thing with, being a weirdo like us, we're a weirdo family, to walk through and go, oh, there's Jim Silk. He's
Yeah,
a
I've seen him every
cheesecake
year.
artist, right? And not only do we love his art, but you actually have a tattoo that is of his art.
Yeah, and I think I showed him the first couple years, and then he finally was like, okay, we know. You're the girl that has my art.
Right, right. I remember seeing Dave Stevens before he passed away. Dave Stevens was the guy who drew The Rocketeer and sort of brought Betty Page back to the forefront. 10 years ago, I ran into a very frail old man in a wheelchair, and I almost lost my mind because it was Forrest Ackerman. Now, Forrest Ackerman was the publisher and creator of Famous Monsters of Filmland. Forrest Ackerman coined the term sci-fi. This is the grandfather of fandoms. And I didn't want to bother him, except the guy pushing the wheelchair, his handler, his nurse, he said, no, Mr. Ackerman loves to meet his fans. So I got a picture with him, and his smile is as big as mine. I used to dream of meeting Forrest Ackerman. Oh, my God. He's a legend. He is a legend. Let that sink in. But that's what Comic-Con is. And you know what? A lot happens when you go to the bathroom. I've talked about the bathroom a lot. And one time I went to the bathroom. Now, this is prior to 2008, because we're going to talk in a minute about 2008. But prior to 2008, Comic-Con was a different world. The floor was not mobbed. You could still get tickets in a reasonable, fun manner. I'm very lucky to have written, not lucky, all my hard work of writing 3 novels has paid off in I get to go as a professional because I'm a published author. But back in the day, you could walk around. I remember, again, going to the bathroom, and I came back from the bathroom, and there's my wife, and some guy's hitting on her. It's con, so you just sort of take it with a grain of salt. And you want to say who that was?
Well, this happens all the time. Are you talking about Gene Simmons?
Yeah, I'm talking about Gene Simmons.
Okay, I figured that was the one that stood out only because he's the most well-known. But I guess I knew who it was, but it didn't really hit me until after. Oh, that was the guy from Kiss. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's like, so tell me about your tattoos. I'd like to know, this is Gene Simmons.
Yeah, he kept rubbing my arm where my tattoos are.
Yeah.
It was very, very
Yeah.
strange. because I was in a very much younger days, very revealing halter shirt. So.
And I think according to the way the KISS Army works, he actually owns 30% of you now. That's just the way Gene Simmons works. But
I have a great photo of that day too.
We actually have a photo to prove, yeah. But there are celebrities everywhere, and you also got hit on by Terry Moore, the guy who drew Strangers in Paradise. Do you remember that year?
I don't even remember that.
He just kept staring at you. And then Jeffrey Weissman 2 years ago. Jeffrey Weissman is the guy who played George McFly in Back to the Future 2 and 3, who took over for Crispin, and they were signing autographs, and I don't think you even knew who he was.
I didn't. I'm going to be honest.
But he really was friendly with Josie.
Yeah, he was great.
He was very friendly to you, right?
Yes. Yeah, he was great.
See, I don't know how I feel about that. As a Back to the Future fan, do I have to endorse that, or... I don't know. I don't know. What do you think, Josie?
I don't know.
But that was a cool day because we got our picture taken in the DeLorean from Part 3.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. And all the money went to help Michael J. Fox's foundation.
I think that's the first Comic-Con you really remember.
Yeah.
If you talk about things during that con,
right.
that's one she remembers most.
And that was, what's the name of that TV show?
What
Where they
TV
find the
show?
Hollywood props?
Hollywood Profiles?
Hollywood Treasures.
Treasures.
Yeah. The company is called Profiles in History.
Okay.
Now, they love us, too.
Yeah.
They always give us free stuff.
They need to bring that show back. That was a great show.
Yeah, that was a good show.
I don't understand how Storage Wars can be on season 10 or whatever it is, and that show ran such a short time.
I have no idea.
It's so much more interesting to hear the history of movie props than fake junk in people's storages. Sorry.
Let's stay on topic.
I know. I'm getting rant on that
Now,
one.
the thing with Hollywood Treasures is that they are Profiles in History, is they always have amazing stuff on display. You know, when they have James Bond's gun, the one that Sean Connery has in all of the promotional pictures, that's amazing. But you know what? I'm so jaded and so cynical and so understand the way movies work. Nothing really affects me, right, Josie?
Yep.
What prop that they had 2 years ago affected me? Do you remember?
I remember.
Do not remember.
No?
Because I've never seen you in awe of any one item ever.
Right. Nothing phases me, right?
No, I didn't think we were going to get you away from it.
What was it?
It was the original Willy Wonka costume.
It was Gene Wilder's purple dark suit
Yes.
from Willy Wonka. Oh my God. If I'd had enough disposable income, I'd be wearing it right now. I wouldn't take it off. I would sleep in it. I would walk around and I'd be buried in it. It would never leave me.
Even when you die, you'd be buried
Yes. So nobody could get their hands on it but me. Right? Because that movie, I mean, I could do a whole 90 minutes on what that movie means to me.
Okay, now who's getting off topic?
This is Con. This is Con. We're talking about Con.
So was Hollywood Props.
How about going to WonderCon and meeting Jordan Himbro,
What?
We
the
meet
toy
him
hunter?
every con now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Jordan. It's weird it's weird to take my kids and then all the shows that they watch, suddenly there's the guy.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They see something on TV,
Yep.
and then they meet him.
And that ended up with Austin on the show.
On
My
the show.
my middle
Pretty
son
much.
on the show buying a toy.
Yep.
Right? At WonderCon. How cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
So we've actually been on TV buying a toy on Toy Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Buying a Micronauts toy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about Lou Ferrigno?
What?
The Hulk?
He's at every con.
He might even be on this podcast. That's how everywhere that he is.
Yeah. There is no escaping him. I put con pictures up every year to get in the mood for the new con that's coming, and there's always one of him. So I started making it a drinking game. Every time I post a picture of him, you have to take a drink. Because there's so many in my album.
Of Lou Ferrigno.
Yes. That's what
Now,
I'm
I
talking
talked earlier about how the celebrities who charge for their autographs and what they charge and that sort of thing. What is the only... let's see if she remembers, because she hasn't heard the first part of the show. What's the only autograph you've ever paid for?
Mark Singer. And I pay again. I pay double.
Who is Mark Singer?
He's badass. He's from V, the TV series, and from my childhood. He is Donovan. He's gorgeous, and he saves the day. He's awesome.
Yeah, I was saying
Good
how I've never paid for an autograph at a con. I can't break the $20 barrier, which is what Mark Singer charges and what's the Gorn charges.
Yeah.
Most of them are 30. Like Leah Thompson's was 30. And as much as I wanted her autograph, I couldn't do it. But it worked out anyways because I actually met her just a month ago. But do you remember when we met Mark Hamill? Because I talked all about that.
Yes.
He didn't charge for his autograph.
Oh, I don't remember.
You just had to
that.
get in line. There was no
We have a great
charge.
picture of him too.
That's unbelievable. I mean, you think about that now, that just wouldn't
But that
happen.
was at a Comic-Con. What con was that?
That was a Creation Con.
That was before we had kids. That was a long
Yeah,
time
that
ago.
was a long time ago.
That is probably my first con I think we ever attended.
First con, I talked about how toy shows kind of count.
Oh.
We went to a lot of toy shows.
Yeah, we did do a lot of toy shows.
And did you ever go with Spencer's to those Star Trek cons, or did we just go on our own?
We just went on our own. Yeah.
Think about that. Spencer Gifts used to stock so much Star Trek junk that they could get a table at a Star Trek convention and make enough money to pay for it and the employees. That's unbelievable. That's a lot of next generation stuff.
They carried a lot of Star Trek in the 90s.
Yeah, whoever the buyer was at Spencer's that time really liked Star
liked
Trek.
it.
They didn't have a lot of Star Wars. Not that there was a lot to buy. But even I got into the Star Trek thing because there was nothing else to collect, right?
Yeah.
So, Josie, you've been to a lot of cons. What's the most exciting thing you've ever bought to take home at a con? Do you remember anything that stands out?
Our first years were nothing but ugly dolls.
Ugly dolls, yeah.
Every day, every year.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, I do remember a funny memory with you.
What?
You used to collect Littlest Pet Shop toys.
I still have some.
Yeah, and when they changed the look of the pets,
Yep.
what happened?
I went up to Hasbro and I complained.
Yeah. And what did they tell you?
They said, the designers aren't here right now. You'll have to come back later.
And what was funny, I thought, about the way they talked to you was they talked about it being a product line, and it went through some cosmetic changes to incorporate the new dynamic ways things are sculpted. Like they used all of the industry talk on a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, "We're sorry, kid. Here's a free toy. Get out of here." Because I mean, that's what I would have done, right?
Yep.
And that was like, you went back a couple times to hassle those people, right?
Pretty much.
I
Yeah.
think she did it 2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
What will you have any griefs with Hasbro this year?
No, because I'm not so much into Littlest Pet Shop anymore. I'm more about ponies.
But they sell ponies. They're the pony people.
I know.
Whatever drug you're taking, honey, they're selling. All the toys. All the toys.
Can I just say that there's no problem with ponies?
There's no problem with the ponies.
got the ponies
That's good to
right.
know.
They don't ruin anything with new lines and new that.
Give them
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. What if they do like Creo ponies? Would you buy those? The little fake Legos?
If I knew what they looked like,
Yeah. You'd be interested?
I probably will.
Yeah. You sound 30. I'm perhaps thinking of making that purchase of the new pony line. What do you think of the pony line of the ponies as people?
Ponies as people.
What are they called?
Equestria Girls.
Yeah, because Shout Factory that sells DVDs is going to have not only the My Little Pony DVDs, but an Equestria Girls photo op. Is that something we need to stop by for?
Probably. I mean, Equestria Girls are my favorite form of My Little Pony. I like Generation 4 My Little Ponies and Generation 3.
Okay. That means nothing to me, but I'm sure it's very important to the pony people.
Yes.
I am not one of the pony people.
You're not.
No, I'm sorry.
I don't really care that much for Equestria Girls. I wouldn't buy the dolls.
Because they're
or
just dolls,
anything.
right?
They're just like,
If you wanted dolls, you get Barbies, and these are just, you'd rather have the ponies.
they're kind of like Monster High dolls. Like, you can get a Monster High doll and, like, customize it to be an Equestria doll.
Yeah. So why would you buy that?
Why would you buy it?
Okay. All right. Josie Tucker, everybody, chiming in with more pony talk.
Yeah.
Okay, Rachel, any last thoughts you've got on Comic-Con? People are going to listen to this before they go because I'm going to put it up as soon as I can. If someone's going to Comic-Con, you're a mom, you've got kids, you've been 1,000 times, what would you tell them?
About kids? Leave them at home.
No, you can't do that to the kids. You got to take them to the con.
About con, plan ahead, bring snacks, have a costume, even if it's just homemade, I appreciate people that walk by that did the same thing I did and took boxes and duct tape and made something. I think that's the best part. It's the main reason I go to Comic-Con is to watch the cosplay. That's the best. I appreciate all the costumes and all the hard work and to take thousands of pictures.
Okay. Now, you can't leave the kids at home because my kids have told me, quite frankly, they look forward to Comic-Con more than they do Christmas.
This is true. And they actually get ill. They get every night before we leave, they start getting very nervous and anxiety. And because last year, Josie and Austin both threw up. But once they actually get on the road and get there, they're okay. It's just the build-up of, oh my God, it's here again.
Right.
Yeah. Every year.
Do you remember the great Comic-Con traffic jam? They both grown.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Oh boy.
An entire day trying to get to Comic-Con because a grocery store truck blew up with meat in it and stopped the whole freeway, and everybody trying to get into Comic-Con was stuck on a freeway for hours upon hours, which we thought would be about a 40-minute traffic jam turned into 6 hours.
6 to 7 hours.
Yeah, it was really long.
Yeah. I'll eventually post the video on the Facebook page if you'd like to see it, because I edited all the hours down to about 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah,
and you get to see the
pretty
wreck,
funny.
so it does pay, just like being in a real traffic jam. You get to see the wreck at the end, which is kind of sad.
Kids go from, we're going to Comic-Con to, I have to go to the bathroom. Is it ever going to end? Are we ever going to get there? It's kind of heartbreaking to watch, honestly.
Yes.
But we'll remember it forever, and we did eventually make it, and it was still a great con.
It's
it just
always
has an
a great
extra
con.
story.
Have we
all.
ever had a bad con?
No, it's impossible.
I can't think of any.
Sore feet. That's about the only thing you complain about at the end of the day, but well worth it.
I remember the con Mom broke her toe.
I broke 2 toes, and it was the night before Comic-Con, and then, like the awesome person that I am, I sucked it up and wrapped those toes and walked the next 5 days, 12-hour days, all day on my feet, and suffered through the pain, and I just took a lot of medication. It worked out just fine. But yeah, that's a very memorable Comic-Con for Mom. Yeah.
Last year we were at World Market, which is in downtown San Diego, the gas lamp there, and we watched a woman push a shopping cart full of candy through the store. She loaded it with all candy bars and lollipops and sugar candy, probably like $80, $90 worth of candy. And the girl at the register had to ring it up one piece at a time, you know. 1 piece, doot, 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 2 piece, doot, doot, doot. And the woman in front of us was just as irate as us. I mean, it was kind of funny, but that was Kathy Najimy
Yes.
from Hocus Pocus and King
but
of the
that
Hill.
was another moment where it's like, well, why do I know this woman we're talking to? Why does she look familiar to me?
Yeah.
But I, of course, didn't want to say that right in front of her. But I could tell by your expression
I
that
know
it was
who she
obviously
was.
somebody I needed to know. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I know.
I know everybody.
Yeah, I keep you around for that.
Yeah.
Con.
I
You're
leaned
great
over and I
for
was
it.
like, this line has sure taken us a long time. She was, I didn't do that. You imagine doing that to her? How's it go? And she would be, she might launch into Peggy. Maybe I should have done it.
Yeah.
Maybe I
she
should have
might
done it.
She was actually really nice and in really good spirits. As much as she was irritated with the woman in front of us, she was having a great time with us.
I can't think of any celebrities that we've had a negative experience with at Comic-Con. Everybody's knows that it's about pressing the flesh and meeting people. Nobody's agitated or irritated. The only trouble you ever have down at San Diego are the security at the convention center, because they want the con there. They do everything they can to keep it there. And then when you get there, they don't want you there. They want you out as soon as possible. You know, don't stand here. Don't walk here. Get out here. And I'm like, just leave us alone and let us enjoy the con, right?
Yep.
We had one negative experience at WonderCon, but we won't go there. Just this year. With the face-off girl.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Although she broke my daughter's heart, she better hope I never run into her at another con.
you can't threaten people on 91 Reasons.
Well, I'm just saying, she did break a little girl's heart and a promise.
So she said she would put makeup on her, and the next day they were too busy, right?
Right. But she wasn't even sad. If you, I mean, be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, or I feel so bad for her, or that poor little girl. She just didn't even have the time to see it as an issue, and that's what made me the most upset.
All right. Well, we can't go out on that.
No, we can't go out
The
on
show's
that.
winding down. We're nearing the 45-minute
Yes.
mark on the second half, which is a 90-minute show. Normally what I put out is about 90 minutes. So we can't go out on that. We have to go out on all the amazing people that we've seen at Comic-Con.
Yes.
The time that Danny DeVito was walking through the con surrounded by security, and I got up on a chair and said, "Nobody look at Danny DeVito. He wants to go through the con unattended. He does not want to be bothered." And he was laughing the whole time.
I'm honestly looking forward this year to the stuff outside of the con as much as I am inside. They've really built it up that you can have a full day without even stressing about if you even have a ticket to go inside. There's so much to do.
But how will you get by without seeing Kevin Smith?
Oh, I'm sure we'll still see him.
Steve Sansweet.
No, he's every time. Are you kidding? He seems to find us.
But we love Steve Sansweet.
I love him. I feel like he's part of the family. My children have grown up. I could do time pictures of Austin growing each year next to Steve. It could be like our chart. Our growth chart for
we
Austin.
met Steve Sansweet at the con where we met Mark Hamill. That was the first time Mark Hamill had made a public appearance at a con ever.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal. And I remember we had just bought his From Concept to Screen book where he talked about how Star Wars went from an idea to a movie to a toy. And that was great because that was the first real in-depth look at Star Wars toys. And I remember going up to him and saying that I had an item that I didn't know if he had. It was a watch. And I said, "Mr. Sansweet, I have a watch I don't think you have in your collection." And he invited us up to his house and bought the watch, and we got a full tour of his house when he lived here in LA.
Amazing.
That was fantastic, and that happened because we met him at a con.
Yeah. And then when our son was born, we sent him a birth announcement, of course. When you name your son Luke Skywalker, it just felt fitting. And he immediately responded with a congratulations and a lovely letter for Luke to have in his baby book, which I still have in there today.
Yeah, I was saying that earlier in the show. You can back me up. You meet people you'd never think of at a con. You have friendships that last 3 days that you'll never see again. And now with social media, I guess, there's friends. I mean, you made friendships that last years. Real quick, before we wrap up, because I talked about it earlier, 2008 was the real changer for con. It was the year of Twilight. And Twilight's such a weird phenomenon that it doesn't come along very often. Guys are very susceptible to manias. That's how we're wired. We go from mania to mania to mania. When women get in a mania, they go gonzo with it. And such as it is with Twilight. And when you tell people that, you know that thing that you really like, that you want to live, and they go, yeah, all the people that are in it are going to be at Comic-Con. You can't tell people that and not expect an onslaught. You know? We've seen guys dressed as Spock and Luke Skywalker for 30, 40 years now, right? But the idea that all the people involved with Twilight are going to be in a room together and you get to go, that was the turning point. And that's when Comic-Con sold out in minutes. And when people camped out overnight. And
I did.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
Camped out overnight, 2009.
10 hours on the sidewalk on a cold San Diego night.
And that was to see what?
The cast of Twilight.
Can you explain that? Because I can't.
Loved the books. I had never read anything in my entire life that I wanted to be a part of. I would have moved to Forks that second if that world existed, which it does. But if those people were there, I needed to be part of it. So for an opportunity to be part of it, of course, you're going to do it.
You know, it's interesting because I'm such a fanboy and I love so many things about pop culture. There are very few things that I will stand in a line for. I'm just not wired that way. I haven't been since reaching adulthood. The last major line I can remember standing in was for Back to the Future 3, and that was 24 years ago. So it's weird to think that people would stand in a line overnight. And it really did change the face of Comic-Con. It drew a line because you started seeing signs. People would carry signs that said, "Twilight, go home. Don't invade Comic-Con. My vampires don't sparkle." It was the first time there was a real conflict. A conflict. Like that, Josie? Thankfully, it's ended. I mean, the Twilight saga ran its course. But the after effects are never going to go away. Comic-Con now is always going to sell out because that demographic that liked Twilight morphed in the same demographic that likes Vampire Diaries
Yeah.
and True Blood and
That's true.
Doctor Who and Dexter and all these shows that are genre shows that feature good-looking men that women respond to.
I don't honestly think it was Twilight. I think that was a big year for women to take over Comic-Con to say we can have fandoms too. But I think it's TV shows and miniseries in general where it used to be more about sci-fi movies and comics, and now it's culture and TV, and it's not just Twilight.
There's no doubt that the people who participate in Comic-Con, the studios and the TV, the producers saw that this audience is going to this event.
Yeah.
If you know that 100 people are going to show up at a place hungry and you sell hamburgers, you're going to drive over there and sell hamburgers. So they saw this moment, and I think that was the real turning point, because up until that point, you wouldn't have seen a show like Weeds have a panel. It's not a genre show. But once Twilight hit, I mean, the real saturation point was that show on ABC called The Middle. I don't even know what it is, but I know it's like just a standard family sitcom. When I saw the year that they had a panel, I said, we've reached the breaking point. There's no such thing as a non-Comic-Con property. Every property is susceptible to Comic-Con because the people who go see the Transformers movie also watch TV at home. They're also going to go to the movies to see something else. So they've just decided to promote everything at Comic-Con, and you can trace it to that first unbelievable moment of women camping out to see Edward and Jacob and Bella.
Well, then I'm proud to say I was part of that because I did that. I was in that line overnight. And although I'm not a Twilight fan any longer, and I actually wasn't after the second movie came out, that's when I stopped. I only made it through. I am a fan of the first movie, but by the second movie I had lost complete interest. I kept watching them because I love the books, but I didn't care for the movies. But I still don't regret it. I still love that book series, and I still am.
Well, we're not here to put your like of Twilight on trial. I'm just simply saying that was the turning point, and that tipped a lot of women off that Comic-Con is a place that you can. It's not just for guys, and there's nothing wrong with that. Definitely nothing wrong with that. And any guy who appreciates the female form knows that all the best female cosplayers are going to show up to con dressed to the nines to show off everything that they've got and more. Yep. And that just simply did not happen 15 years ago. When you and I went 99 and 2000, it was about male-driven properties for men. It was a different market. And now it's just everything. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, I think it's great. You know, I don't appreciate the crowds, but hey, it's tough to be popular, right?
I think it's part of Comic-Con. I don't even mind the crowds. Now that my kids are out of strollers, that's when I had issues with the crowds. But now that my kids are out of strollers, I'm okay with being in the cattle and moving through it.
Right. It's
fun.
what it is, right?
It is, yeah.
You just pick an aisle, head down it, and take in the sights, right?
Yes. You just have to be aggressive. If you want to see a table, you just got to be aggressive. And without a stroller, you can be.
So, what are you looking forward most? We're going to Comic-Con day after tomorrow.
Yay!
Yay!
What are you most looking forward? What are you going to buy?
What am I going to buy?
Yeah.
Oh, I hadn't really considered anything major.
I
was just talking about Yaya's calendar.
I thought you were going to buy that Team Edward shirt.
No, not going to buy that. What I like they don't have, which is sad because it's a sci-fi TV show and you would think there'd be more V.
More V.
More V. Bring it back.
They already brought it back.
Bring it back again and again and again. You don't give up on good stuff.
It ran its course.
Well, I'm still going to be there for them.
Let it go, Indiana. I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to. I don't normally buy a lot of stuff at con. I can resist. But Funko is supposed to have Back to the Future action figures, finally. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and that's what I'm going to buy. And if I can't buy those, I'm going to buy the Alien set. Because they look like Kenner figures, and that's what I grew up with. And isn't that, ultimately, as we wrap this up, isn't that what Comic-Con really is? Walking through those doors, and everybody's 13.
Yeah.
You're a kid, and everything you love is in there. If you like the $6 Million Man, it's all there. Every toy you can buy. And Lee Majors is signing autographs somewhere.
Yeah.
Next to Tracy Lords, Elvira,
Yep.
Boomer from Battlestar Galactica, Lou Ferrigno, and the guys who got killed in Season 2, Episode 4 of The Walking Dead, right? They're all there. We got in a line last year and met Anne Rice. There was no line.
That was awesome.
We waited 5 minutes to meet Anne Rice, a legend.
Yep.
That's what Comic-Con is. It's that moment of that thing you like becoming tangible and real and seeing that it was the creation
Who
of
did you
somebody.
meet last year? Do you remember anyone you met?
You met Glenn Hetrick from
Yeah.
Face Off,
Yeah.
and he loved you.
Yep.
She's nodding. It's radio, honey. You gotta. No? Hello. Hello. And you also met the guy who won the prior season.
Yeah.
What was his name? Anthony
Yeah.
from Face Off. And at Scare LA, you met Eric.
He was the coolest of them all. We love
Eric.
Eric.
Eric who?
Fox.
Eric Fox, who we found out lives like 3 blocks from us.
But yet we still haven't ran into the man.
So,
How's
okay,
that
here's the
happen?
plan. We're going to Comic-Con in 2 days. Eventually, somewhere down the line, we'll do a wrap-up show. And 2 weeks after that, 3 weeks after that, we're at Scare LA.
Yay, Scarlet!
Yay!
Scare LA's a Halloween-themed convention where Not Scary Farm is going to do a panel, and I'm moderating it. So I'm actually working the con. I'll be signing books there at Dark Delicacies at their table on Saturday. So we're going to wrap it up. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of 91 Reasons. If you see us at Comic-Con,
Say hi.
Say hi. Say, I listen to your show. Because I know there's like 6 people who listen. 6 people. It'll be fabulous, right?
Yep.
That's right. Who are you again?
I'm Josie Tucker.
All right, who are you again?
I'm Rachel Tucker.
All right, and I am Jeff Tucker, the voice, 91 Reasons. The best way to support the show. Subscribe on iTunes. Yes, we're on iTunes. And that's a whole episode in itself on how to get your podcast on iTunes. Subscribe on iTunes. Leave us a fabulous comment. I am the author of 3 books. The series, The Sixth Key, is the first book. The second book, The Lost Station. And my latest book, The Infinite Backward. Coming next year, book 4. I'm working on it in between recording podcasts, The Ice Temple. The first 3 books are available both in a nice, beautiful paperback edition, which I can sign for you at any of these conventions, or you can get them each one on your Kindle as a download for only 99 cents. 99 cents?
Wow.
Wow.
That's less than the cost of French fries. All right. Thanks for listening. This is 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?